Hello, Dee.
Hello, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Uh, this is Empowering Democracy. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. And my guest for tonight is Dee Peers, who is the co host of Around the World with Brandy and Dee. And she and I just got through with one of her streams. This particular one was about the horrible things that are beginning to happen, okay, in Israel, even worse than before. So, uh, we're here now to continue the discussion of how we can make two things happen. The first thing is developing the dump the corruption movement so that it works to create a revolution in the House of Representatives in 2024 involving replacement of nearly all of the current representatives with entirely new representatives who haven't been taking any of the big money. So we'll be talking about how to do that. And we'll also be talking about the methods we might use to do a second objective, which is to crack the Congressional Progressive Caucus so that we get uh, the progressives who are being dumped on currently to declare their independence and to create an independent voting bloc in Congress that would give the progressives more power because the Democrats would have a much tougher time crushing the progressives if they were an independent voting bloc in Congress. Or at least we think so. So let's start to talk about the first objective, which is how we start up the movement. So last time we talked about how we could reach particular hosts who might be persuaded to support the dump the corruption movement. And here is my second guest for tonight, who's Madelyn Hoffman, who's a professor, okay, an adjunct professor in the New Jersey State College system, and who for many years was the CEO of a peace organization, okay, in the state, okay, of New Jersey, and who is a multiple candidate for office on behalf of the Green Party of the United States.
Yes.
She ran with Ralph Nader in 1996, I believe,
A lifetime ago, Joe.
a lifetime ago, as his vice presidential candidate in the state of New Jersey.
Correct.
And she's run for governor of New Jersey. She's run for senator from New Jersey. Uh, she's run altogether for public office, I believe, 6 times. Is that correct?
You are correct, Joe. Good memory.
Okay, I try. It's not always so easy at this age, but I try.
You do extremely well for any age.
Well, thank you, Madeline.
You're welcome.
And you're doing pretty well for any age yourself.
Thank you.
So I've got some good things going on here. Okay, so last night, yes, no, it was Friday night, I guess. But last night, we got to the point of starting to name some other streamers who might be persuaded to take up the cause of dumping the corruption, okay, in the U.S. government. But to persuade those the streamers, it seems as though we're going to have to get on their shows. Okay, I've begun to think of us now as not simply me, but as over time we've developing a team of people who believe in the idea of dumping the corruption and trying to change the whole Congress very rapidly within 3 election cycles. In other words, that would expose the whole House to our efforts to change but 3 times, and would expose the Senate to change also 3 times, which is needed to get everybody corrupt out of the Senate, because only 1/3 of the Senate roughly stands every 2 years. So that's why we're talking 3 election cycles. The basic idea is that if we get people to use a litmus test, which says if a candidate is taking any big money, they're out. I could state 5 sources of such money, but I want to go on with the basic idea. If everybody voted against such people, then as far as the House is concerned, the people taking the big money would be thrown out basically in 1 election cycle. With the Senate, it would take all 3 election cycles, but eventually you would get all the people who are taking the big money, get them out of office. When you get them out of office, you also get the toxic money out of office, because it turns out to be no good for getting people elected to office anymore. In rejecting the people, you reject their donors, okay, as well, and you reject their control over the Congress. Then, if people want to get elected to Congress, whether the House, okay, or the Senate, what they have to do is to listen to their constituents and do what's good for their constituents, and look to their constituents for support, including financial support, which means looking for small donations. Okay, so in effect, if we all acted this way, we would be banning the big money from politics. So, how do we get this view exposed? Okay, that's the issue. How do we get ourselves on shows that are widely watched? Okay, it seems to me there is a way that if we watch those shows ourselves and we leave comments, and remember, our group is getting larger. I can probably count now as many as 10 people, okay, who are in this group. And it's also true, D, that if you do a Dump the Corruption show, let's say once a week or something like that, on your channel, and Greg does the same thing, okay, on his channel, and we get a few other streamers doing the same thing on their channels, then there'll be lots of YouTubes for people to watch to decide whether they think this idea is a good idea. And by being commenters on the shows of streamers who are widely watched, if we keep on making the suggestion that they should have a panel show which represents the movement, or the Dump the Corruption movement, with the people who are supporting that movement, then they would have a very interesting show and learn about all the details behind the Dump the Corruption movement. If we keep on doing that for a few weeks, we may be able to persuade someone with larger audiences uh, to allow us to make the case. So that's kind of a little plan as to how we could increase our reach, okay, in the short run. If we were successful, okay, at that, and if in the process we persuaded some of those other streamers to adopt the cause, and we got them to do, say, one stream a week, okay, on Dump the Corruption, then the movement would begin to grow much faster. So that's what I'd like to do to start with, to try to goose this movement.
You did not just say to try to goose this movement, did you?
I did.
You did say that.
Try to goose it. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Very graphic image here. Okay.
Yeah, I can be funny sometimes.
Yeah, really. I think that says a lot right there. Because we do need, and now you also want to focus on this side of it, the Dump the Corruption side first, not the Congressional Progressive Caucus side that we have spoken about before as well.
Okay, well, okay, if we can organize our people, I think we can probably do both at the same time. Okay, but I think this is likely to involve, well, let's just take one example. Okay, I think if we try to target, say a Brianna Joy Gray, and we successfully persuade her that this is the movement she's been looking for. I mean, she's been doing all kinds of streams expressing great angst about the role of money in politics, that our democracy is being taken over, has been essentially taken over. Of course, she's very upset about the squad continuously folding on different issues. And she talks to people about what to do about it. And just the other day, she had actually Ralph Nader on.
Wow.
And he suggested something to do about it. He suggested that what you do is you start with a letter. You start with a letter writing campaign, and before you write, that letter, you organize 500 people to support what that letter says. And then you send that letter to a House member, and you include a little PS at the end of that letter. And the PS basically says, well, look, it's not simply me. I am one of many people who are asking you to do this. Okay, if you'd like me to do it, I can get you 500 signatures for this letter. 500 plain and clear signatures for this letter. Then if the congressperson meets the challenge and says, yes, please do that for me, then you deliver a letter signed with 500 clear signatures from the district of that particular congressperson, these congressional races are often decided by rather small numbers, of voters. So someone who's able to deliver 500 votes against a congressman uh, can have a material effect. And he was, suggesting this actually to Brianna, and she liked that idea. But that idea, even though it's likely to have some success, and it's likely to make an impact in this race or that race, or the other race, that is not an idea that would produce a wholesale change in the makeup of Congress in a single election cycle. But the dump the corruption idea is. So the question is, if we could get to talk to her in the context of a panel discussion, or a single interview, that would be up to her. And we make the case for dump the corruption there, she might see that if we could motivate people with such a movement, we could really have a very heavy material effect on the next election in 2024. We have 2 years to build up this movement. If we have enough people doing it, then 2 years is enough time. If we had a number of people reaching out to BJG, calling for her to interview the members of the movement and stating the outlines of the dump the corruption case, she might decide to take the panel discussion or take the interview.
Let me add a thought to that, Joe? May I?
Of course.
In New Jersey, for example, next year, all of the state assembly seats are up. All 40, in all 40 state districts. And the Greens have been talking about, how to put pressure on without having, say, 40 Green Party candidates to run. And it really seems to me and seems to us that in New Jersey and around the country, there's a desire for for independent candidates, whether they be green or unaffiliated independents. Maybe another arm to this is to help to build to have independent candidates pushing for dump the corruption, because I think that's one thing that probably all independent candidates agree on, that big money is keeping independent candidates out of debates, out of the running, and making it more difficult. And I would think that we might be able to quote unquote, seize the moment in terms of that desire to dump. I mean, the railway strike. I don't, that where Biden basically told the railway workers, this is what you're going to accept or else. I think that might have had the effect of moving more people away from the Democratic Party. So that's my thought for the moment, that I hear that it's taking these streams and trying to expand them and reaching out to other streamers, but maybe also to potential independent candidates for office as well.
Yes, I very much like that idea. If we could create a movement of independent candidates, in Jersey, all running on a dump the corruption idea, all running on that idea as the first issue, in their campaign, Okay, the
Hmm.
first issue being, if people running for office are taking big money, they will not represent you. They will represent their donors, and that's going to happen just about every time. So, if you want to have a representative who represents you, you have to vote for someone who is not but taking big money. If you had a group of candidates, a whole slate that was running on that, that would be news.
Hmm.
And that could probably get you in the door with some of the streamers who have a big audience. So if we work on a parallel track, we try
That's
to
the word
use
I was looking for.
filters, but we also use the candidates themselves. If we talk to the candidates themselves about dump the corruption first and foremost in their campaigns, that would be something. Well, even take the specific situation, okay, of Jersey. Uh, we know a journalist uh, who writes for one of the New Jersey papers. Hennelly is his name, Bob
Yeah, I
Hennelly.
know him. I know him from a long time ago.
You know
Yes,
him from a long time ago.
yes, I do.
Okay,
Hmm.
we have interviewed him, on our channel.
Hmm.
Okay, Lisa and I, okay, are friendly with him, especially Lisa. Okay,
Mm.
so if we start this movement of candidates who are running on that idea, he is sure to cover it and to support it.
Especially if it's not reserved to Greens, if it's broader than Greens, because as Lisa said and as we've said, I think the media and others have in. Um, I don't know if it's animosity, or just not not strong positive feelings about the Greens. But if it's broader than, if it's an independent movement that includes more than, um, that would probably be beneficial for the movement itself in many ways, in more ways than one, actually.
Okay, a thought also comes to me now, too. There's no reason why the independents who are running for office or who intend to run for office should not come together and all run
Hmm.
on the platform, okay, of dump the corruption. Uh, it's entirely in their interest. It's basically saying,
Indeed.
let's throw the candidates of the two major parties out because they're all taking the big money, or most of them anyway, except for a handful. Okay, so the independents should be very much for that because they've been
Yes.
competing in an unfair environment for a very long time now, and they're basically excluded from any chance of winning. But if we got this movement going and we got press discussion of it and press support of it and support of it from some of the big streamers, we'd be making a lot of noise. If we're making a lot of noise, then we can get to more and more streamers and we can grow the movement. Uh, what I mean then, okay, by growing the movement is we would have enough support that we ourselves are the people who are with us, okay, at this point, could constitute a social network. And we could generalize that social network. Of course, it will take a little time. but I think the topic is a hot one.
Oh,
Okay, I think if we can get it to go viral in that first year, we can construct a social network in all 48 states, or 50 states, I should say.
and Joe, as a Green, I was blocked from participating in the New Jersey gubernatorial debates in
I know.
2021 because I didn't raise $490,000. And when asked to write an op ed piece about it, or after being asked to write an op ed piece about it, and submitting that op ed piece, I was told by the publication that invited me to write the op ed piece that they couldn't publish it because it would look like an implied endorsement of my campaign on their part, which boggled my mind then and boggles my mind now. I raise it because if there's a independents who are carrying that banner, and there's an op-ed piece that's authored by that group of independents, no one can say, oh, well, if we publish that now, it's an implied endorsement of your particular political party or your particular candidacy. I mean, it gives us more quote unquote legitimacy with the media.
Yes,
Desperately needed. It's desperately needed.
Yes, it is.
right. I think that's a great idea, Madeline. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fully in support of it. It's a way of breaking out of our narrow circle and making it a far larger network. And
Yes.
that's really the kind of explosion we need, okay, at this point. Solana Dell points out that John Stasevich is patiently waiting to be interviewed by all. He's an independent candidate for president, okay, in Michigan. I've seen his platform. Of course, um, his platform looks fine. In other words, he looks like a candidate whose issue profile is very, very desirable from our point of view. The question is, uh, would he join with other independent candidates to socialize the idea that people in good conscience cannot vote for candidates of either of the major parties who are taking big money? Now let's sort of define that, okay, a little more. That's money, okay, from wealthy people. It's money from large corporations, okay, or institutions. Okay. It's money from PACs. It's money from super PACs. I know the super PACs do not actually directly contribute to campaigns. And so people do not directly take money from super PACs. Okay. But in reality, they are supported by very large amounts of money from super PACs. For example, super PACs were spending millions of dollars to defeat Summer Lee in the Pennsylvania. I think she was running in CD 12. It was either 12 or 17. And of course, she won, but it was a very, very close race because the super PACs were attacking her and thus supporting her opponent. He was getting virtually millions of dollars indirectly in support from the super PACs. So I mentioned four sources already. And then the fifth source is the major party committees. The major party committees. Hang on a second. I have a message. Oh, so Madeline had to leave. and she says that she will talk to me tomorrow. That's great. So, Dee, it's just the two of us. So, to get back to the general stream of comments,
Well, I was going to say, since Lana mentioned about John Stevich, maybe you should have him on your show and talk to him and then bring up the idea about
oh, yes.
corruption.
Okay, I definitely intend to do this, but we have more of these streams to go through to further develop this plan
Okay.
from our end, so we know that we're doing. Okay, because there's a particular time when we should be starting to interview independent candidates. But the independent candidates are going to want to come on our show, okay, in order to get some visibility for themselves. And I understand that. And I understand that that is very important. But our objective here isn't necessarily to give anybody visibility on our show, okay, or our shows. Okay. Our objective here, okay, is to get people together supporting Dump the Corruption, okay, as a very important part of their candidacy. That's what we're interested, okay, in doing. So I'd be more interested in getting panels of independents on who would make this a part of their platform. Also, at various times, to get some individuals on. Okay, but our purpose in doing it is to start up a movement. Okay, and the purpose of the candidates who are coming on would be to get some visibility for themselves. So we have to organize the interviews in such a way that they're a compromise between these two things. And we also have to determine whether the candidates are fully committed to dump the corruption. And as we move forward with this, D, we're also going to have to be checking on the candidates who are running to see that they're sticking to the dump the corruption idea. So I think those are some of the things we have to do as we go forward. Okay, but I want to continue to try to flesh out something that looks like a plan so that we can really give birth to a movement. And by the way, when I talked about trying to build a social network, I was talking about the kind of thing Laura Fielding has done with the Red Berets. Okay, I wonder if we, in building such a social movement or social network, okay, if we also couldn't be have that social network be characterized by visible signs of identity that someone is a member of that particular movement, so that the independent candidates who run would easily be identifiable as supporters of the Dump the Corruption movement. So, what do you think?
I was thinking, well, for somewhat visibility, we could put together a group, Dump the Corruption movement, and invite people to the group. But we'd have to post related stuff to Dump the Corruption and not just have people just post whatever they want. Just have,
Yeah, you'd have to be writing about dump the corruption,
right.
which naturally leads to the question: uh, when the group evaluates candidates, for example, the CPC people, to start with, we would have 100 CPC members to evaluate from the standpoint of whether they're acceptable from the dump the corruption point of view. I mean, we know what the result, okay, is going to be, but we have to do research for each of these candidates, uh, okay, to see the particulars of who their donors are and what kind of money they're taking.
Right.
So that's going to take research. And then when we feature the candidates who want to oppose them in 2024, we'll also have to research those candidates and make sure that they're not taking any of the big money. So further comments, Dee?
I'm thinking about this because it's a benefit to not take the money, and because the mainstream people we know are just so corrupt, and the country is fed up with it. So it's yes, we evaluate them, and they've got, like you said, they've got to have information on their platform, their pamphlets about dumping the corruption. And if we can have some kind of insignia or some kind of label, something that really shows that it's a movement, and dump the
Yes.
corruption.
The obvious thing, and again, we look to what Laura has done. These berets are the mark of one belonging to a social network that is supporting Medicare for all.
Right.
So I was, of course, thinking about the idea of us, having berets too, and developing a cadre of people who are willing to do the berets for members. That's already been done, of course, for the Red Berets movement by Laura. But the idea of having a craftivist side to the movement does create a feeling of solidarity that's been very valuable for the Red Berets. It kind of makes concrete the spirit of the movement. It's kind of a tag that
Yes.
people can social organize around.
I've got to see what color berets we would use.
Well, we know there are blue berets for suicide prevention. Okay, of course, the Green Berets, they are a particular unit of the military that achieved some fame, in the Vietnam War. But that doesn't mean we couldn't use Green Berets.
To symbolize money.
Yeah, to symbolize dump the corruption. And Barney says, well, how about the yellow ribbons? Yeah, yellow ribbons have been effective in the past, okay, as well. Okay, so we should be thinking about some kind of symbolism for our movement. There was, I think, a great comment here made by Steve Wolfbrand, who said, Kenneth Mejia made it work here in Los Angeles without big money. perhaps he would join your movement. Steve, I think that's a great suggestion. I think Kenneth Mejia has been a great candidate now for some time. I've been very friendly to his candidacies, all of his candidacies. I can't remember whether I ever had an interview with him or not. I have a memory that I have had one.
I believe you had one as well.
Yeah, I think it was back in 2018 when he was running for Congress in 2018. But yeah, I think you're right, Steve. He might really appreciate being part of such a movement, of Dump the Corruption movement, because he's going to want to run for Congress again. I don't think he's going to want to stop with the Los Angeles the city position that he was successfully elected to. Steve Day says, start with the date the objective can be achieved. Plan backward in time to now. Yes, Steve Day, I agree. That's the way to do it. Steve Wolfbrand says, perhaps reach out to breaking points. Yes, I think eventually reach out to breaking points. And I don't mean very far down the road either. Okay, but I think we have to get more members before breaking points is going to be interested. I know they're likely to be interested fairly early in the process because they're looking for new things. And I think they'll be looking for something like this that, if successful, would totally change the Congress. So maybe they'd want to talk to us and see if we really have something that would stand up to some of the elementary objections people are going to make. Okay, because they're going to fix on some highly visible objections to start with. So we have to think of those and be prepared to answer them. Robert Copeland says lots of people are spending a lot of time getting Medicare for All, Green New Deal, or tenants right now. I know. Yes, I know they're spending a lot of time, and they have been for years. And look where they are, and why haven't they been successful, and why can't they be successful? We all know it's because of the donor money and donor control of the political system. We all know that's the reason. So I think that all the people who have been trying their damnedest to pass legislation that people need and that makes great sense, I think all of them should become a part of the Dump the Corruption movement. Because that's the key for everybody. If we were successful in turning around the House and filling it with people who weren't taking any donor money in the election of 2024, do you really doubt that we would fail to get a Medicare for All passed in the first month of 2025? I mean, I don't doubt that those policies that we've been for so long would not sail through if the donors were gone. Now, at the beginning of 2025, if everything went well, they would be almost entirely gone from the House. But they would be gone from a lot of the Senate also. And the senators would see the movement having success in the election of 2024, and they'd be scared. Scared. I think we could get a lot of good legislation passed in 2025, even though 2/3 of the Senate would not have been directly subjected to scrutiny based on the dump the corruption idea. Lana says, for colors, I would like blue, fade to yellow, fade to green, and start again. Well, that's a technical problem I don't know how to accomplish. But if you know how to accomplish it, Lana, then please tell me. Lana says, I couldn't find the green heart. Lana says, ask Fran about the color fade. I might not be saying it correctly. Blue fade to yellow, fade to green, and start again. Yeah, that might be very good. Yes, I will ask Fran. Cece says, hi, 9:45 break, stop by Black Berets, Joe, because I saw an old stream of yours when you mentioned you were a beatnik or gray berets simply because it rhymes. Well, that's interesting, Cece. I don't know if I like the black berets idea exactly, but we'll see. I'm open to suggestions, obviously. Kay says we need single payer now. Well, I know we need single payer now, but unless we get people in the streets and they stay there until they get single payer now, we're not going to get single payer now. We would have to wait to replace this Congress in the House, most of the representatives, before we could get single payer fast. I feel optimistic we could get single payer at the beginning of 2025 if things go as I described. Steve Wolfbrand says Kenneth Mejia is actually quite popular in Los Angeles at the moment. I wonder whether Karen Bass would support also such a movement, because she was nearly victimized by big money in this last campaign. Steve says, Fran made my red beret and others that I bought for friends. Yeah, Fran has made some red berets for me, okay, as well.
Yeah, she made mine as well.
Yeah, she's so talented.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, she's really great. Okay, and Michelle de Villiers is excellent as well. She makes beautiful berets in terms of color schemes. Okay, and things like that. Of course, we're very tempted to go with berets as the symbol because we are members of the Red Berets. So that's our first thought. I'd like us to give a little more thought to the general idea and see if we can come up with something else. But I surely do like the berets idea to symbolize a movement. And I'd be happy to alternate between the red berets and the three color berets that Lana was talking about.
Or even the gray beret that Cece was mentioning.
Yeah, Cece also mentioned nobody's done brown berets yet.
Hmm.
Says, I love brown. Okay, I guess I like uh, blue berets. Uh, I've seen the light blue berets, for suicide prevention. Okay, I like those. But maybe we could use berets that were darker to signify what we're doing. Uh, Somehow, if we could think of something that really had a connection, to dump the corruption. Yeah, I know Karen Bass takes corporate money, but the point is, she probably wouldn't have needed the corporate money if she wasn't running against a billionaire who was using all his money to try to get elected. I know she takes corporate money, Steve. Robert says most politicians take corporate money. They do, Robert. That's why, if we socialize this idea successfully, in the first election, we would clean out the House with the exception of maybe 10 people. If everybody voted the way we're calling for, we'd have 425 people lose their House seats the first time around. If you don't think that that would be a psychological revolution, well, I certainly think it would be. CC points out blue is an establishment color. It'll just make people think, but Democrats. You're right, CC. How about purple?
Yeah, purple's a healing color.
Yeah, purple is also the royal color. Okay, is there a color for democracy?
I don't know. I have to I have to look that up.
Well, the color for socialist democracy in the past has been red. It has been red. If
Yes.
someone makes a small super chat on the bigger channels to support them to corruption, they will have to read the suggestions. We ought to talk about that some more, Steve, okay, as well. White berets, said CC Swift. Hey, white berets might not be a bad idea for this.
Yeah, cleaning up and
Yeah,
purity.
they symbolize the purity of dumping the corruption.
Yes.
And Lana calls for the Greek flag and smiles. Yeah, the Greek flag is a nice flag. It's sort of white and blue, isn't it? Cece, what color did the resistance use? What about camouflage? You mean we use camouflage berets? That would be that would be interesting. I think I like your white selection better, Cece.
Yes, I like that too.
I think that's a winning idea. So let us think about it a little more. For now, it's 9:56. I think it's time to wrap it up for tonight. Back to my colors. Back to colors. My original thought was blue to green. If we add yellow, that encompasses the independents.
Yes, white
White
really
really
stands out.
stands out, and it's cool in summer.
Yes, it is.
Cece, you are really on target tonight.
He is.
Okay, but I think Lana's idea of having the colors fade is also very attractive. Fade from blue to green to yellow and then back again. But maybe from blue to green to white and then back again. I think that would be interesting. Okay, I'll think on all those things. What I think we also should think on before leaving for the night is we should think about who our members are, okay, at this point, and make a list of our members. And I should see, okay, if I can get a Slack done for us.
That would be great.
Yes, that would be great. Okay, but let's start with a list of people who we think are with us in terms of supporting this movement. Because we have to know who to populate the Slack with. Okay. Thank you for coming, Kay. Kay says, thank you, Joe and Dee. Not sure who CC, can't see what that person says. CC is on YouTube, and CC is CC Swift. Okay. CC is a student who takes breaks at 9:30 or 9:45 and always drops in on our show lately, at least for the last 2 weeks or so, and is rapidly becoming a fixture around here. You see, he says, catch you later, break over.
Okay. Yes, he's
So
a regular now.
he's a regular now, and he is quite successful in suggesting new ideas, okay, and good ideas. That's who CC is. So CC's a student, and he's able to catch us during his breaks.
That's great that he thinks, he thinks of his show during his break.
Yeah, I know. I know, it is great. Okay, so everybody, good night. I'll be back, but tomorrow with another of these shows. I think I have a lot more discussions to go. If anybody else wants to join our panels, today we had a panel of 3. It was myself, okay, and Dee, okay, and Madelyn. Sometimes we've had 2, sometimes we've had 4. Anybody else would like to join our panels, they are certainly welcome. We are trying to build a social network here to start up this movement.
Yes, and all thoughts are important.
Yes. So thank you for coming. And Steve Wolfbrand, thank you very much for your suggestions here, which were excellent. Lana, yours also were excellent. CC Swift, your suggestions were also excellent. So thank you all for coming, and thank the 3 of you for particularly good suggestions tonight. Okay, so I'll be seeing you tomorrow for the Wednesday night show. I have a feeling we'll be continuing this for the rest of the week. These discussions may well go on for the rest of the week as we, get more people in our panel. Some people have been able to come only once, but we've already had 5 different people, who have come on the streaming panels. So I think some of these people may be back next week if they're not too busy preparing for Christmas. Okay, so everybody have a great night. Okay, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Good night.
Okay, but by the way, Dee, are you going to be with me tomorrow?
Yes, I can come on tomorrow.
Okay, that'll be excellent. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
And Sona Cece must have blocked me. Oh, well, why would he block you? Why would he block you on YouTube? That's not. That's interesting. I'll ask him if he blocked you next time I get a chance to talk to him. Uh, People think we can make change and completely give up voting are fooling themselves. Yes, I know. I know. I mean, I think the fastest way we can make change, other than going out and sitting in the streets until we get change, sitting on the streets for months, okay, enduring brutal charges by police and by military. Uh, yeah, I mean, maybe at great cost, we would have change from that and would be quicker than what I suggest. But I think what I'm suggesting is actually the quickest and the way to do it with the least amount of losses of good people. So, again, thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow night.